It really is full-blown autumn here in the UK, and of course I had to celebrate that in my planner. We are using very similar colours to the colours I used in October, but rather than for a Halloween vibe, we are going a full autumn floral vibe with these gorgeous stickers from the works. So this was a super cheap and again quite easy setup. The other things I am using is I am using a set of tombos in 800, 847, 026 and 991. Then as well as that, I'm also using 2 dot markers from Zig Clean Colour dot markers in Fawn and Salmon. And then I have shown you 3 washi tapes here, but actually I only use the one with the grid pattern. The other 2 are from Simply Gilded, the sparkly one, and the autumnal with the foiled line going through it is from Rhymer Made. Fully recommend Rhymer Made for beautiful washi tapes, as Simply Gilded as well, but obviously Rhymer Made is in the UK. For my headers, I am using a Papermate Flare in medium because I wanted that thicker look for these. And I've also printed off a sheet of craft sticker paper with a dot grid to make it easier to write those titles nice and clearly and straight. I'm actually using the Tombow in the 026 to do all of my lines in this setup because I wanted that slightly more subtle look. So you've so far seen me set up my Doodle-a-Day page, and this was again inspired of my Rhymer Made. She is doing this in her bullet journal, and I just thought it was a really nice, cute, easy and quick memory keeping technique, and I just thought it would be fun to practice my doodling in a non-digital format, in an analog format, because all I do at the moment is digital drawing and things, so I thought it would be nice to do some analog drawing. I also just want to bring a bit more creativity in my life, and I thought that was a great way to do it. Moving on, I have now pretty much set up the base of my monthly spread, and you might be thinking, Tilly, that does not look like a monthly spread, but it is. It's a monthly split up by weeks. And when I say monthly, I'm really talking a cycle here. Obviously, this setup starts on the 27th of October and runs for 4 weeks from that. So actually, it's not, although I've called this my November plan with me, it's not really November. It's the second cycle of my quarter. And I've found this is a really nice in-between between having a monthly spread and having a weekly. So I now don't set up weeklies and I just do daily spreads. And that is working so well for me for having as much space as I want without worry. And being able to be, barely use a bit of space sometimes, and other days have loads of space to write down all of my tasks. So what I do is, although I fill this in at the beginning of the month, at the beginning of a week, so on a Sunday when I'm starting to set up for my week, I go back through my digital calendar, which is where I basically pre-plan everything, and update this with any more appointments that have turned up since the beginning of the month. And that just works perfectly for me. And I just find this, well, it's a horizontal. The week goes vertically down. I find my brain works with that much better, and because I'm trying an ideal week layout and things, I find splitting my month into those weeks is really, really helping me with my planning. I obviously didn't do an October plan with me, but here is how it came out. As I said, it was also oranges and reds and things. I pulled out the orange a lot more, and I used completely different fonts. So although we are similar colours, the look in the end is very, very different. We are now going to move on to my action step page, and this is basically I take all of my goals and split them into 4 categories, which are projects, which are things that I won't do in one sitting, tasks, which are things that are a bit bigger that I will do in a bit smaller that I will do in one sitting, weekly tasks, which are things I try and do once a week, and also daily tasks, which go onto my habit trackers. And that's how I find the best way to split up my actions for any goal setting to work. And having this place to track them just makes me feel so achieved when I start to see things ticking off. It can be a bit of a catch-22. If you saw on my October one, it wasn't as filled in as I would have liked. I haven't got as many of the projects done as I'd like. And that's why I've added in the next pages that we're going to talk about in a moment. But I find it really satisfying when I start to see my action steps filling up. And sometimes that can be a catch-22, as I've said, but generally it is really, really helpful for knowing how I'm getting on with my goals as well. Even if it's not motivating to see those things ticked off, knowing that there's work to do is helpful. But I've seen there, I did actually use some washi tape to mask off to do those headers. That's the last time I do that. Well, no, I do it once more, I think, in this spread. I decided just to go a bit more free-handed. I am, of course, using second line highlight to make everything a little bit easier to read. So if you are looking at this, the box on the left is my projects, and they have 4 squares, basically to represent the percentage way through. So each square represents 25%. The tasks just have one little block, and that's the bottom right, and the top right is the weekly, which is why it has 4 steps. I decided at this point that I wanted a more hand-drawn look for this. It just felt more in keeping with the theme. So rather than using a ruler anymore, I am just freehanding my lines. They're not straight. You can see that straight away. They're not straight, but I think it works really well for this. And we have now moved on to my habit tracker and my step tracker. I've changed these up a little bit this month. Last month ended up a bit meh in the end, my habit tracker. I had quite a few busy weekends and just things weren't getting done because I was so busy at the weekends, and then I'd try and get back on it, but there was just too much happening. So I've pared things down. I've gone down to just 7 habits. And as well as just having 7 habits, I've set a high bar, low bar. Now, I got this idea from Jashi Corinne, who I am currently obsessed with her YouTube channel. I'm like watching legacy videos and things, which is so much fun to watch old videos. So I've watched like over a year worth of her videos recently. And she used to do a high bar, low bar. And this is the idea that if you make your habit so incredibly easy that it's ridiculous to not do it, then it's much easier to, once you've started, gain momentum and keep going with that. So I have set high bars and low bars for all of my habits. And some of them are smaller than others, and some of them you might be like, Tilly, why are you not doing that? So for example, if you've ever looked at my habit trackers closely, I track brushing my teeth and washing my face. I've actually made those together on this habit tracker because I've dropped down my habits. But my low bar for that is just putting some toothpaste on my tooth and putting some soap on my face once a day. And my high bar is doing both properly. But I've just written once/twice. My goal for creating or reading, which is basically to try and get me doing something for myself, is only 5 minutes. Picking up a book for 5 minutes is totally fitable into any time. My high bar is doing 20 minutes. For my pelvic floor exercises, doing them once a day, but the goal is 3 times a day. So that's my high bar, low bar. My physio for my thumb, which is still really, really quite sore, is doing it once and twice. For having some playtime with Bayla, I've just want 2 minutes. 2 minutes just to throw her up in the air and sing a song to her is plenty for my low bar. But I want to try and play with her for at least 50 minutes. Dedicated just play. Obviously, we do loads of play together anyway, but I want that dedicated time to just play with her. Doing a bit of a dance workout every day. Just have to do 1 song for the low bar, but the high bar is doing 15 to 30 minutes. And then my dose action is doing the previous dose actions that I've found help me, and then adding in my new one. And that's kind of my idea between my habit tracker at this time. And then at the bottom, rather than my old step tracker, which took up a full page, I've decided to make this a bit smaller. I'm a bit hit and miss on my steps. I did really well at the beginning of the month, and then after I missed a few days, I just completely fell off. And I do have a bit of a habit of doing that. So I've left my step goal at the same side, so 8,000 steps. And we'll just see how it goes. And we're just using a little bit less space. In the time that I've been blathering on about high bar, low bar, I have actually set up my ideal weekly. And this worked really well for me last month. However, the problem with it was that I was busy nearly every weekend in October. And that meant that things at the weekend didn't get done, and then things ran over to the next week, and I was on a losing battle. So this month I have actually set up 2 different ideal weeks, one for when I'm free at the weekend and one when we've got plans at the weekend. So hopefully that way I can still get everything I want to do done in a week. It might not work because all I've tried to do is squidge things down into less time. So that may be a problem, but we'll see what happens. But that is why I have the one on the left is for a regular week and the one on the right is for a week where we're busy at the weekend. Moving on now, I am doing a goal plan. So again, as I said, Last month I did struggle a bit with like getting all my goals checked off and doing everything that I wanted to do, partly because we were so busy at the weekends and so had so much on, but also just because I didn't really have a good plan of when I was going to do anything. So what I've done this month is I've split all of my tasks into each week. So each week of this cycle, because I do cyclical planning, I don't do traditional monthly planning. So I've split each task into one of the weeks of the cycle, and I am going to try and get those things done on that week. We'll see what happens. I am now moving on, and I have nearly finished, in fact, my social media tracker. So I've just done that header again with the washi masking, and I'm gonna, there we go, we've done it. We've done the other one as well. I didn't think you needed to watch me put down the washi multiple times. So the block on the right is for Instagram, and I'm trying to post to Instagram 3 times a week, and things go onto this tracker and get written in when I have I've scheduled the post. And then on the left we have my YouTube tracker, and there are 3 boxes for this, for filming, editing and uploading, and I add the tick or dot, whatever, I'm doing a dot when I have done each of those 3 items. So that's what those 3 columns are. At the top of this page, I'm giving myself space for a mind unwind or brain dump. The name Mind Unwind has come from, again, Jashi Corinne. As you can see, she has heavily inspired this video, and she's also inspired my slightly different, the way I've laid out this, and how I'm talking a bit more about how I'm going to use the spreads rather than what I'm doing, because actually I think that is what's helpful in a bullet journal video. It's not exactly what you're doing, it's how you're going to use this to help your life, and I think that's really important. So this Mind Unwind is just a place for tasks that aren't goals and things, or things that come into my head and I'm like, oh, I need to do that at some point, or if I've written a task down on a day, but actually it doesn't need to be this week, to pop it on here, and there's somewhere where that is stored and it's not just trying to keep it into my head. The next page I'm setting up is for notes on endorphins. If you noticed in the flip through of October, I haven't filled in my serotonin page, and this is a bit of a problem because I'm meant to be doing the serotonin actions. These are from the book The Dose Effect, and I've found it quite a good book, and I decided I was going to test out a lot of the actions. So this is where I am making notes from that book to make sure that I'm trying to do the actions, but I haven't made them for the serotonin. So one of my goals this week is to try and make them for serotonin and endorphins, to get those notes in my planner so I can actually start doing the actions properly. So this is my page where I'm going to make the endorphins notes. Actually, going forward, I'm finding notes like this aren't the best place for those, isn't in my bullet journal. And again, inspired by Jashi Corinne, can you see a theme here? I'm thinking of keeping this sort of note digitally. She does it using Notion. I don't know how to use Notion at all. So I'm also thinking of doing like a completely new to Notion sort of vlog series of me learning how to use Notion. If that's something you'd be interested in seeing, it wouldn't necessarily be quite a how-to, but it'd be how I worked out how to use it. So it would be a bit of a how-to, if that makes sense. So if you'd like to see that, leave a comment down below. I think I'm really excited about that idea. So it might be something that will come to the channel, but then I don't want to do it if nobody wants to see it. But it'd be like a beginner's guide to Notion. So I'm going to move notes like that to there. I also think I'll be better at making notes digitally because I type faster than I can handwrite, but also I quite often use text to speech, speech to type. I can't think what, dictation software, because that is how my brain works. Like, I talk quite fast. If you haven't noticed in the voiceover of this video, I talk quite fast. So that is all of my monthly spreads, and I'm here setting up my first weekly/daily space. The only thing I'm doing on a weekly basis that isn't that first page is I'm setting up a priorities list. Basically, that priorities list is pulling everything from that goal plan for that week, plus anything that's left over from the previous week, and also anything else that isn't on my goals that's come up in the period, in the cycle so far. And that's just so I don't have to keep flipping back on a week. When I set up my daily, I can just pull actions from that from my ideal week. So all I have to do when I make my daily spread is I flip to my monthly page, look at any events or things that we have on that day. They go at the top. I then pop in the habits that need to be on my to-do list. And then I look at my ideal week, look what I'm meant to be doing on that sort of day. So on a Monday, I do my scripts and book stickers, I reply to messages, I unpack our Gusto box, and I work on orders. So I pop those things on my to-do list, and then if there's any time left in the day, I will then add some things in for my priority at the beginning of the day. And that's how I make my task list for the day, and I think it works really well. I'm quite excited about how this goes. The other thing I've started doing is that I'm using my dot markers to mark 3 priorities, high priorities for the week, and 3 low priorities, for the day. And they're the first things that I try and do. I do also pop a smaller dot on the things that I can do whilst I'm feeding. For example, I can record this voiceover whilst Bayla is feeding. She's actually fallen asleep, so I haven't given my normal disclaimer that she is with me. I also thought it would be really fun for this video to actually show you the filling in of these spreads, and that was partly because I filmed this so late. So I actually filmed my migration process into these spreads. So right now I am writing in my YouTube plan, and I've actually changed this YouTube plan. So this scrappy bit of paper is my vague YouTube plan, and I've changed it. So you can see me here scribbling things out and changing things up. And that's because actually I want to be putting out my 2026 bullet journal video a little bit earlier than I initially planned, so that it's more helpful for people when they are setting them up. I'm now going through my Unwind from the previous month and moving any of that across into this one. And I have 2 columns for this. And the way I'm using the 2 columns is the ones on the left are anything Tilly Journal related, and the ones on the right are anything life and general life and home related. I'm also then going through each of my dailies from the last month and making sure that everything is either ticked off, migrated, or cancelled, basically. Once I'd done that, I was on to my monthly. And as I said, this is a weekly, monthly weird combo thing. It just works so well for my brain because my brain works in weeks. That's just how it works. And that's why I'm using these cycles. What I haven't talked about is cyclical planning. I will talk about it at some point. I will also link Jashi Karin's video about it up in the little bar here and down in the description of this video. So that is there if you want to check it out to find out a bit more about cyclical planning, but I will probably talk about it a bit more in my 2026 setup. But basically, a cycle is 4 weeks, and each quarter at the end of 3 sets of 4 weeks, there's a reset week, and that's the basic idea. So I'm basically going through my digital Google Calendar, which I share with several people, including my best friend Sophie, who is the yellow, my husband, who is the bright blue, I'm the purple. It's got Jashi Karin's content calendar there. It's also got my mum and dad's calendar, and I just take anything from that I actually need to know about or that affects my day, so my husband's annual leave, stuff like that, and write it into my monthly spread. And I will update this, but it won't get touched until, so I did this on the Sunday before this started, which was the 26th, and now I won't touch it again until this Sunday, the 2nd of November, because I'm unlikely to get any more appointments this week at this point. Maybe I will, but then I generally remember. Now I am filling in my action steps. So basically this is from my goals, and I'm just pulling out those actions that are in my goal plan from setting my goals, which I am using this year, my goals planner from my shop, but I do want next year, I'm trying a bit more flexible system. I'm intending to do some goal courses and look at different things about setting goals, to update the goal planner, because the way it is formatted currently doesn't quite work for me. So there's that. I'm now moving my ideal weekly across. It works so much better for me if everything is set up before the month starts, which is what I was talking about with that Endorphins spread, but oh well. So here I'm popping in my altered ideal week for busy weekends, and you can see where I've moved the weekend activities on a scrap of paper to elsewhere. And then they can just get popped in. And then I'm pretty much there with the migration. There isn't that much left to do. I do have my goal plan. And how I did this, I didn't pre-plan this. I just went through my action steps and put them in weeks. I could have done this in a scruffy notebook before, but to be honest, I didn't feel it needed it. I have sped up this migration process to about 10 times speed. If in the future you would like to see this in more real time and me talk through my thought process as I'm doing it, leave me a comment down below. But that is pretty much my setup completed. So we're now going to do a bit more of a slow flip through to show you all of these pages that we have set up. What do you think of this monthly spread? Is there anything that has given you ideas for your bullet journal or things that you might try doing? I'm really excited for this month. I love the craft paper and all the florals, and honestly, it's Tuesday, 2 days into this setup, and I'm loving it. Leave a comment, like down below, all that kind of jazz. If you enjoyed this video, check out a video that YouTube thinks you'll enjoy, or my most recent video on the screen now. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in my next video. Bye!